Good morning, and thank you for being here as a follow-up announcement. Many of you, at least all of your news stations and media outlets, joined us at Tyson's Corner Center on Father's Day weekend as we dealt with a very serious incident. You know, there are places in every jurisdiction in our country that define the health of any county, any city, any town. And one thing that we're really, really proud of in Fairfax County is Tysons. And in this particular case, Tyson's Corner Center. It's not only someplace that Fairfax County residents frequent for many, many years. Folks throughout the National Capital Region, Washingtonians now for a couple plus decades, routinely visit Tysons. It's a great place, present tense and future tense. It's a place where we dedicate a full team of police officers 24/7, 365 days a year. There are Fairfax County police officers assigned to what we call the Tysons Urban Team, or our TUT team. It's important to us. It's important to our community. So when a crisis like this happens, the public safety response, not just police, but fire and rescue, Fairfax County Fire and Rescue, and not just our agency, but other surrounding jurisdictions, to include federal law enforcement, we take it very, very seriously. So we're here to announce, and you're going to hear some specific details of this crime and the arrest of Noah Settles. Noah Settles, 22 years old, of Southeast Washington, D.C. Noah Settles, at the age of 22, very sadly, is no stranger to law enforcement in Washington, D.C. He's no stranger to law enforcement in Prince George's County, Maryland, and now he's no stranger to the Fairfax County Police Department. 22 years old, he recklessly discharged a firearm on the second floor of Tysons. And it was a crowded, beautiful Saturday afternoon. A lot of folks were there shopping in anticipation of Father's Day, I can imagine. You'll hear from Lieutenant Laziski about Noah Settles' association with a crew in Washington, D.C., the 37th Street crew. We know that he has been associated with the 37th Street crew for some time. And you'll hear from Lieutenant Laziski about the presence at Tysons last weekend of the 37th Street crew and the Simple City crew, both geographically close to each other in Southeast Washington, D.C. Many of you who have been covering the news in this area have heard of both for many, many years. They were engaged in a beef. It started with words. It ended up with a pushing and a shoving match, and then the display of a firearm. And then just minutes later, 3 shots ring out. 3 shots in a crowded mall. So we're very pleased to announce that Noah Settles turned himself in last night at the Fairfax County Adult Detention Center. I believe he was represented by his attorney. He's now in custody, and the work of identifying additional folks goes on. So Lieutenant Laziski will fill in some details, and then both the lieutenant and I will stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief Davis. At 2:45 p.m. on Saturday, June 18th, Fairfax County Police were called to Tyson's Corner Center at 1961 Chainbridge Road in McLean for reports of a fight inside on the second floor. Our police officers learned that a firearm was brandished during this fight between 2 groups of 4 to 5 individuals each. The investigation revealed that Settles was involved in a physical confrontation with a group of individuals. Moments later, Settles was captured on surveillance video producing a handgun and firing 3 rounds. The shooting sent patrons and employees throughout the mall fleeing for the exits. Others sheltered in place and feared for the worst. 3 people suffered minor injuries as they rushed from the mall. Fairfax County police officers then swept the mall and helped patrons exit, as well as employees. As officers were responding, witnesses provided information on a vehicle fleeing the scene. A description of that vehicle was then shared with our surrounding law enforcement partners. Through the digital evidence and with the assistance of our area partners, detectives were able to quickly identify Settles as a person of interest. Further review of the digital evidence confirmed Settles' role as the shooter. Detectives obtained arrest warrants the following day. Settles turned himself in last night at the Fairfax County Adult Detention Center. and he was held without bond. This situation could have been much worse. Those within the Tysons Corner Center on Saturday exited the mall promptly and in an orderly fashion. I want to thank everyone who stepped up and helped bring this case to a closure. Additionally, I want to thank all the first responders for their swift action that day and our detectives who never stopped working through the weekend. Thank you.
Any questions? Paul Wagner, you look like you have a question.
I'm just incredulous.
Yeah. We've heard of these groups before.
Nobody was harmed.
Yeah, we've heard of these groups before in the National Capital Region. They were both present at Tysons over the weekend in a crowded place where a lot of folks were simply going about their daily lives. One thing I want to do before we take some additional questions, and there are so many people who assisted the Fairfax County Police Department with this investigation. We rarely do it by ourselves in the National Capital Region. We rarely do it by ourselves. So, in particular, in no particular order, the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C. has been fantastic. And in fact, I've spoken with Chief Conti on a number of occasions since this occurred. MPD had their own crisis over the weekend at 14th and U when gunfire rang out in a crowded area, a public space where people gather. That seems to be a theme. Montgomery County Police Department, Prince George's County Police Department, Arlington County Police Department, U.S. Park PD, and 3 federal law enforcement agencies, as always, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and the FBI. They've all assisted. And finally, the leadership team at Tysons Corner Center has been a great partner. Yes, sir.
How are the gang intelligence units of Fairfax County Police Department working together with Metropolitan Police Department, especially when it comes to these 2 particular crews? And any idea what these crews' motives are, or at least like what their, was this just like a random encounter beef, or is there any sort of other motive?
Well, first part of your question, how do we interact with other intelligence units in the National Capital Region seamlessly? We're embedded with one another. Information is shared all the time, not just during a crisis like this, but all the time. Our crime analysts in the National Capital Region are second to none. So it's not an issue of a lack of intelligence or information sharing. That's at a gold standard level. Now, the age-old question is, why are they in this altercation? I don't know. It speaks to human nature. It speaks to the dynamics of belonging to a crew. They're largely the 37th Street crew members on this particular Saturday were dressed in black, and the Simple City guys were dressed in white. They probably know each other. They do know each other. We know they know each other. And what starts as a look or a gesture or a smirk or an eye roll turns into a verbal altercation, and then words turn into pushing and shoving. And if it stopped there, that wouldn't be ideal. But if it stopped there, that'd be a heck of a lot better than an altercation like this ending with gunfire. But that's where we are. They were armed. At least Noah Settles was armed. We know Noah Settles was armed, and you can see the still picture, and hopefully you all got a shot of that. I think it's back up. Thankfully, Tysons has made a big public safety investment with cameras, and thank God that they have, because not only did we capture Noah Settles armed with a firearm right before or as he discharges it, but we also capture the black Cadillac that's leaving Tysons as well. So I can't speak necessarily, or at least intelligently, about the nature of this conflict, other than it's young men with a lot of anger and other societal issues that contribute to where they are in life. That's not always their fault, but they're armed all too often, and unfortunately, in this particular case and elsewhere, the resorting to firearms to settle a petty dispute is what gets us here today.
These 2 gangs, are they geographically based within the district, or
yes, Southeast, in the Anacostia community in Southeast DC, Simple City, and 37th Street.
And any reason to know why, other than just potentially they just were out for a shopping day out at Tyson's shopping center, what brings them to Northern Virginia?
Well, Tysons is known regionally as not only a place for retail, but a place for dining, a place for entertainment, a place to gather socially on a Father's Day weekend. So there's a number of different reasons why people gather at a place like Tyson's. And young people, I think, throughout the ages, I know the mall that I used to hang out as a teenager, right? I think places like this attract people for a variety of different reasons.
Do you believe this encounter was likely coincidental?
I don't know. I don't know. But we know that they were both at Tyson's at the same time. We know they recognized each other. We know a conflict took place. I can't speak definitively if in fact they knew each other was going to be present that day. Yes, sir. And then you go.
Thank you, Chief. Amari Daniels, Washington Post.
Right.
Was a weapon recovered at the scene, and do you happen to know how Settles may have acquired it?
No, I don't know how Settles got his hands on a firearm. We have not yet recovered that firearm, LT, correct? That's something that, again, we asked the community, whether it's here in Fairfax or in Washington, D.C., the greater community, if anyone has any information about that firearm, we'd sure like to recover it. Obviously, we have video, we have still photographs that clearly depict what happened that day. But we would certainly like to recover that firearm. We anticipate we will recover that black Cadillac within the next day or two.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
can you, I'm assuming this whole altercation and what led to the shooting was also on video inside the mall as well. Can you talk at all about, I have to imagine his attorney may make a self-defense argument that if he felt he was threatened and there are, it's on video that there were other, altercations leading up to it. Did you see anybody else brandish a weapon inside of the mall as well, somebody else? And can you also just talk about, you indicated you're looking to talk with other people. Are there other possible charges for other people stemming from this incident, or do you believe this is the full extent of the charges that we'll see from this?
Well, I guess last part of your question first. We do have other folks that we would like to talk to. We have had conversations and interviews with many people so far, but undoubtedly we've missed some people. So anyone who wants to come forward to describe to us what happened that day or their role or what they saw or what they heard, we certainly welcome that. It continues to be an ongoing investigation. Even after an arrest is made, more investigation needs to happen. I don't want to try this case here at a press conference. So if Noah Settles is represented by an attorney who wants to make a self-defense claim, the most appropriate place to make that claim is in a courtroom. But we know what our investigation has revealed so far. A verbal altercation turned physical. And before the gunplay, there was a gap. So verbal, physical, pushing and shoving. We believe a display of a firearm. And then there was a gap in time of several minutes when Noah Settles reemerged in that photograph. We can put that one back up. Reemerged and then fired 3 rounds. So I think a self-defense claim is certainly one that he has the right to make. I think it's a heck of an uphill battle, in my opinion. Paul?
Chief, how were you able to identify him so quickly?
Well, we share video, we share stills with our partners in the intelligence community in particular, with MPD in particular, and we knew that Noah Settles was involved very early on in this investigation. Then it was just a matter of interviewing witnesses and potential victims to establish crimes. And then it was a matter of obviously pursuing those criminal charges and trying to make an apprehension. We didn't release Noah Settles' name at the press conference that we held at the scene because we wanted to give our detectives an opportunity to work with MPD and U.S. Marshals in particular to capture Noah Settles. But I believe some news of a bolo made its way out into the atmosphere, and then we acknowledged
Somebody
it.
in law enforcement recognized him?
Yes.
Okay. And then where did those 3 bullets end up?
So we have strike marks. We have shell casings that were recovered. Obviously, the bullets come from the shell casings. The shell casings drop near where the firearms are discharged. And there are 3 strike marks that we located in the mall. It didn't hit a person. Thank God. Yes, sir.
Right, just to nail down on one thing you just said. So there was the initial altercation where Settles shows the firearm, according to you all. Then there's a gap of a couple minutes, and then the 2 groups essentially come together again. And before there's any other altercation or anything, that's when he fires the shots. Am I understanding?
So generally, or specifically, there was a verbal altercation that turned into a pushing and shoving match that resulted into Noah Settles displaying a firearm, and then the 2 parties went their separate ways. And then, and you can see it here, Noah Settles emerged again and discharged his firearm. And it was a matter of a few minutes.
Did they emerge at around the same place as they separated, or did the Settles crew find the Simple City crew where they were at? And then
Yeah. Again, I want to be careful not to get into too much investigative detail, but it was a matter of we're talking about where the verbal altercation started and where Noah Settles fires these shots that you see here at the most the length of a football field. At the most. Yes, sir.
Has anyone else been arrested in relation to the incident?
Not yet, but there's every possibility that additional criminal charges against others may occur. And again, you can see Noah Settles is not by himself in that photograph. No one else in that photograph has been arrested. But if we determine that others were involved in this, we will certainly pursue criminal charges based on the probable cause that we can develop. And he's held on no bond right now. Paul?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just kind of looking at this area, I must admit I'm not familiar enough to know, like, this is the first floor, the second floor, like, what are we looking at here in this picture? Is there like,
It's the second floor, and out of respect for the businesses, I don't think it's fair for me to name the businesses that they're standing near. But they're on the second floor of Tyson's Corner Center. They're near one of the box department stores where the verbal altercation started, and then less than a football field's length from that initial skirmish is where you see Noah Settles holding his firearm and discharging. It's on the second floor of Tyson's Corner Center.
And Chief, what would you say to people who might be concerned now about going out to the mall?
Yeah, well, Paul, you can imagine. I've been on many crime scenes in my career. I can't tell you that there's too many more, or there's any others that generated as much personal phone calls to me. Because everybody shops. Everybody goes to the movies, goes to a restaurant, hangs out at the mall if you're a teenager. So I've received, and I'm sure everyone in this room has received phone calls from folks because is Tyson safe? And the answer is, of course it is. Of course it is. It's safe today. It's going to be safe tomorrow. It defines life here in the National Capital Region. I don't know too many people who haven't been to Tyson's at one point or another, and the reason why they go there and continue to frequent Tyson's is because of the level of safety, in addition to the value of the stores and the entertainment venue as well. So we're committed to keeping Tyson's the best retail entertainment shopping district in the entire Washington metropolitan area, and that's our commitment.
Chief, my final question. He was posting on from an Instagram account purported to be his. Were you all aware that he was sort of posting while you all were looking for him? And are you aware that he appears to be live streaming as he turned himself in last night, and any comment on that?
I'm aware of it. I'm not aware of any particular details associated with it. Beyond, I'm aware of it. That's unusual, certainly. But anytime someone chooses to interact with social media while we're still looking to apprehend that person, of course we pay attention to it so it can give us some clues. But certainly that's unusual. But I am aware of it.
Can you take some off-topic questions?
Sure. Any other questions on Tyson's? No? Okay.
You were out at the scene at Blake Lane and Five Oaks a couple weeks ago. You saw the the aftermath of that. And your investigators have said from the start that it was a vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed. Do you know what that speed is now?
So Paul, Usman Shahid, Usman is U-S-M-A-N, Shahid is S-H-A-D-I-D. And there's a press release today that the Commonwealth's Attorney, Steve Toscano, and his office put out. I believe that Usman's speed at the first impact, the car that was making a left-hand turn, I believe his speed, based on our investigation, was 81 miles an hour. And that's certainly a high rate of speed. And as a result, the grand jury has indicted Sadid. I think I mispronounced it. It's Sadid. He's been indicted on 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, and he is 18 years old, so he's being charged as an adult.
And you filed a search warrant for the airbag control module. How important was that to determine the speed?
Today's cars are smart cars, and it tells us a lot about what happens prior to boom, prior to an incident, prior to a collision. So our detectives, and they're the state of the art. The technology they have to interact with is state-of-the-art technology that tells us a lot about the speed of the vehicle, tells us whether or not the driver was on the accelerator, on the brake. It tells us a whole lot. So, again, I don't want to go into all the investigative details because I don't know them, but I do know his speed at the time of the very first collision was 81 miles an hour.
And tonight, the Board of Supervisors are going to hold a safety meeting about Blake Lane. Are your officers going to attend that, and do you have any suggestions on how to make it safer?
Well, I'm sure we're going to have some level of representation. I believe that our agency has for years been involved in traffic safety efforts and traffic enforcement along that stretch of roadway, and that will continue. And I think we have to really look at the heart of the matter is driving behaviors, particularly driving behaviors by young people. And I'm the father of 4 kids myself, so I know the importance of ensuring that young people learn and drive safely and drive in a defensive manner. Certainly, this was not defensive driving at all. But so there's a lot of public safety efforts, some things that the schools can maybe partner with us to do better in terms of awareness and education. But it's just a tragic scenario, and our hearts go out to the two young girls who are no longer with us, and the third girl who was struck, I understand, is at home recovering from her injuries.
And then another reporter has asked for this question. Are you having any problems here in Fairfax County with ATV riders and dirt bikes? And is there a joint effort in this area to try and contain these riders?
So I'm familiar with those riders. I'm familiar with them from other places where I've served. We aren't experiencing any ATV, off-road, motorcycle, the aggressive driving, the wheelies, the donuts. I think if that's what you're talking about, Paul, when those things happen, they typically happen in warmer weather. We have not yet experienced that, but it's something that we'll certainly be looking for, so we can be decisive in the action we take. I know that those folks who engage in those types of behaviors really scare people when they're on the roads, and it's dangerous, and it's something we're not going to tolerate. The Virginia State Police has an awesome presence, particularly on 66 and stretches of 495. So I'm sure it's something that they look out for as well. But we haven't seen any uptick in it this year.
Any reason to believe that Mr. Shadid was either impaired or distracted while speeding at 81 miles per hour?
I don't have any information that indicates that he was impaired.
Or distracted?
I can't speak to that. We don't have any evidence to say that he was impaired.
Based on that, because we heard at the time that he had 2 passengers in the car who actually fled the scene. Do you anticipate any charges for them?
They've been identified. At least one of them has been identified. We do not anticipate any charges. They were school kids. They fled. They should have stayed on the scene. Certainly, they didn't. They fled. We've identified them, and we've interviewed them, and they've assisted us with the investigation. Yes, sir.
Given Shahid was like the minor, and he was speeding, so what would you like to say those teenagers who's driving on the road that that's the safety or something like that, so they know that they have to drive safely home?
Yeah. So he's 18. So he wasn't technically a minor, but he's still, I think, in all of our eyes, he's a kid. He's a young man. And I'd say to him and his peers and the students at any high school in any jurisdiction, the same thing that I've said to my own 4 kids: slow down, slow down, slow down. Be a defensive driver. And there's nothing so important that you need to jeopardize your safety and the safety of others by getting someplace 30 seconds faster. Slow down.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.